Please welcome Justin Fox, Executive Editor, New York Harvard Business Review.
So this is the panel on being a CIO in Silicon Valley. What happens when everybody thinks they're an expert? We've got three CIOs, Ramon Baez of HP, Jay Vijayan of Tesla, and Ben Haynes of Box. And then Paul Chapman has a longer title, although it's in the CIO realm. It's Vice President of Global Infrastructure and Cloud Solutions at VMware. Now I want to start with a quick audience participation question. How many people out here are CIOs or in CIO-like roles? Let's see hands. Okay. How many, now you can put them down, thank you very much. Looks like 10% of the group. How many of you are not CIOs, but think you know about as much or more about technology than your organization's CIO? Okay, this is what these guys have to put up with. And I thought I'd start with the two who are relatively recent arrivals at Silicon Valley companies. And first, I want to say something about Ramon. Today is the final day of HP's fiscal year. So, Ramon, if you need to take a call or do some emails in the middle of this, none of us will.
I just turned the phone off.
Okay. Oh well. You got to HP. You spent the bulk of your career at Northrop Grumman. You were at several other manufacturing companies, and then most recently at Kimberly-Clark, the maker of Kleenex and Huggies and a lot of other familiar consumer products. Right. You came to HP last year, and so what's the biggest difference going from Kimberly-Clark, which makes stuff out of paper to a large extent, to HP, which is selling software and services and technology products?
You know, it's really not that they're different. You know, they're both large companies, right? And they're both global companies. But the big difference is KC was pretty stable, right? And then coming to HP, it's in the middle of a turnaround in the most incredible shift of technology, whether, cloud, mobile, security, big data, all the stuff happened at one time. And so coming into this organization with the scale and size of 300,000 employees, over 100 plus billion in revenue, that's what's different. But it's not really the attitude like you see in the room where people, I know more technology than you. It really isn't like that. That's not what I've experienced in any way.
How about you, Ben? You were you worked at Red Bull for a long time, mm-hmm. and then you were at Pabst, where you were a very enthusiastic and beloved customer of Box. And you're from Australia, so you probably don't know this ad, but in America we had these, Victor Kiam would do these ads where he'd come out and use a Remington razor and say, I like the product so much, I bought the company. I presume you couldn't buy Box, but you did the next best thing. How is that? I mean, is it more fraught, more difficult? I mean, you've only been there for a couple of months, so you got to be diplomatic at this point. But
well, yeah, I'm not very good at diplomacy actually.
Well, good.
4 months in, and the reality is, there's some articles that came out just as I was transitioning in about being a CIO in the Valley is the worst tech job in the world, and if I believed that, I would have slit my wrists. I found that not to be true, and there's opinions everywhere you work, and what I'm finding is there's opinions at a higher technical level, so we're having technical discussions at a greater depth than I ever had to have, but we're getting to actually better solutions because of that. So yeah, there's a lot more opinions around, but it doesn't hold things up. I think it actually moves things forward because we could discount some things pretty quickly and move forward. But what I also find is that like the engineers and that, they don't care too much for running things. They just want to build, and they kind of throw things over the fence. So as long as we solve problems for them, absolutely no problems at all.
One of the value propositions, I think, of this panel for this audience is this idea that in some ways, being at a technology company, a company that deals in IT and software, you're seeing a more cutting edge than companies outside of that. And so I want to go to questions relatively early with this group, just because I think that's a lot of the opportunity here. So to move to Paul, is in the middle of writing this epic blog series. I've actually been reading it. So far it's a trilogy, and I was thinking it was the the Lord of the Rings of IT as a service blog post. But you're already at work on number 4 and 5, so I guess Game of Thrones is the analogy. And although less sex and violence, I would assume. But you're talking about at VMware, this cloud company has just been making the journey over the last few years and figuring out that, oh, I guess we should be thinking this way about a lot of our IT too. Could you tell us a little bit about what you've been doing?
Sure. Well, I think that, even working in technology inside a technology company is a little bit different than, say, a company that makes bread or pencils or something, right? There's certainly no shortage of advice, for sure. We have 3,000-4,000 engineers at our company, so we're surrounded by people that are, triple PhDs in technology. So being in technology and technology company is a little different, but we still deal with, on any given day, the same complexities, the same challenges as any other global enterprise IT organization. However, there is an expectation, and I think it's more than just an expectation, it's a requirement that at the same time we will also be thought leaders and pioneers in accelerating transformation, first off using our own products and our own capabilities, and that of course when you're a first order mover has its own set of challenges as well. We still have to close the books, take orders and ship product and do all those things. There's no forgiveness for that. But at the same time, there's also an expectation that we're driving the future way that IT service is going to be delivered, and that carries risk to it. You've got to be able to run a steady, controlled environment, but at the same time, you've got to introduce at an accelerated pace a lot of change. We're actually finding that a lot of that, the impediment to speed of change right now isn't necessarily the technology component either. In fact, I think technology somewhat outstripped the ability for the organizations to keep up. We're really focused a lot now on mindset and people in process to catch up to where the technology can take us.
So what are some of the things that you've moved in the last couple of years?
Moved in regards to
well, I was just thinking moving to IT as a service from things you were doing internally, or just processes that involve big changes for you.
Well, it's not. I think traditionally, moving to as a service typically tends to involve things like efficiency, and cost, and how long it takes to deliver something. We're really focused on how do you digitize, and it's all about speed. And through digitization, it's no longer about improving the process. It's almost eliminating the process to the point of where something that literally would take weeks or months now literally takes seconds. And those are that's really game changing in how you deliver service to the organization, because that speed and throughput really is a game changer. So we focused a lot in that area.
Now, Jay, you used to work for Paul at VMware, and now you're at a manufacturing company, but it's sort of a different sort of manufacturing company, especially when it comes to IT. Clearly what's been going on at a lot of non-IT companies in this country is this idea of, okay, we can move this off as a service and have Salesforce take care of it, or Workday, or whatever else. At Tesla, you're doing a lot of things that I think car companies traditionally had someone else do, and you're doing it themselves. How do you make those choices in terms of IT there?
Yeah, Tesla is very unique. I think you kind of started with that. In such, we build a lot in-house. There is a larger reason for that. One is the complete vertical integration of every department in the company, and how we can kind of have the departments work seamlessly, and IT be the enabler. It is the biggest challenge for me is more the pace, because very similar to the car, in 0 to 60 in 3.9 seconds, IT runs in a similar speed with the company, because the pace inside the company to get the product to the market, and with the highest quality, because the bar is very, very high, and we move really, really fast. And also in terms of, even though in the nature it's a manufacturing company, but in terms of the composition of the company, you would see more high-tech people from execs to the engineers than manufacturing people in the company. So and it's in the Silicon Valley. So the mindset is very much like a high-tech company. I get a lot of opinions from different people in the organization, and also one of the challenges by many of you might have seen is the business executives who come in from different companies would always have experience with different type of applications and software, and they always have their opinion, rightly so, because they had positive experience with that. But it's not one size fits all. The same application that works in company A may not be the right thing for the company B. And also, as a CIO, we have a bigger responsibility of making sure everything in the company works seamlessly. There is a lot to it rather than one single application and a functionality, even though that's part of it. But the great thing for me, I should say, is the vision from my boss, Elon Musk, is very clear, not only to me, to the company. So that significantly helps me drive on all of our executives to be aligned in the same direction in terms of having IT align with the business goals, totally with the business goals. And we develop a lot in-house, coming back to your original point, starting from our e-commerce system to our ERP system. We developed in-house, and it's been great, extremely successful.
How big is your team that's doing this?
Somewhere between like 250 to 300 people.
Out of a total employment of?
6,000 people company.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's global. And as I said, even though it is a manufacturing company, the way we operate is more like a hybrid and more like a high-tech company. It's a lot enabled by software. And the flexibility and the agility that the company has, I think I was in a very fortunate place to provide some of the solutions that was needed to get where we had gotten to in the company, and we have a long way to go and globally expand.
But basically, it's CIO nirvana for the moment.
Yeah, it is.
A little bit. we get the buy versus build, and I mean everyone does.
Yep.
And what I'm finding, if you talk to an engineer, they can always build it better, and every engineer says that, right? Oh, that's crap, but we can do this better. Okay, when can you have that done by? Well, we're kind of busy. And so as much as they really want to do everything themselves and build everything better, we get pushed to buy decisions because we need to move fast and implement quickly and integrate these solutions across the stack. So,
along the lines, what I found, because I work really well with our Chief Technology Officer, Martin Fink, and so we wanted to do some new things, and we said, you guys would be the best ones to test it out. And he was thrilled. He's never been asked that before. Yeah. And I said, I would love to be able to deploy this, but you would be, besides IT, I think your organization would be the best ones, HP labs and so forth, to really make sure this thing is robust enough before we roll it out. So that's actually been very, very positive.
This is making me think of, and I just, as someone who works at the Harvard Business Review, there was this article 10 years ago by Nicholas Carr called IT Doesn't Matter. And the argument in it was simply that so many of the things that people were spending tons of money on in information technology were all becoming commoditized. And it wasn't that you wouldn't still need them, it's that they didn't offer competitive advantage. And to some extent, and Ben's boss wrote a blog post for us a few weeks ago saying, to some extent that's come true with cloud solutions, with service solutions. But still, we have conferences like this, and they seem to have pretty good budgets, and there's still a lot of vendors out there. What is, and I'm just sort of getting my head, so what about IT matters now? It's clearly not exactly, it's not how much iron you can have in your server rooms, at least for most companies. But
yeah, from my perspective, I've seen the shift in IT, especially since he wrote that book. The shift has gone from out of the back office more into more customer-facing, revenue-generating type applications. And to your point, the whole idea of speed, velocity, because if you do have an IT shop that really is focused on that, it's going to make you a more competitive organization. So and if you take a perspective, you start with the customer first, and you come back to what you're trying to develop, whatever process, whatever cloud solution, and so on, it's going to have a significant impact on your competition. And so I think that's where IT matters.
Yeah, and I'll add that I think that one of the challenges, as I mentioned earlier, in terms of sort of call it organizational transformation, is this sort of constant change is the steady state in technology now. And what you find is the fear, uncertainty, and doubt of what's tomorrow. I was a COBOL programmer in 1987. right? And I think as IT professionals, we sort of reinvent ourselves every time there's this, new set of technology or direction that comes out, and that's part of the fun of being in IT. But you also have an in a traditional sense, people that have built their careers and expertise in certain areas, that the iceberg is melting there. It's like 25 years ago, if you put an advertisement in the newspaper for an Oracle DBA, you had to use newspapers. Monster didn't exist then, I guess, but you wouldn't get any. But now there are thousands, right? And who knows tomorrow, 5 years from now, whether an Oracle DBA will exist? But there will be new roles. And what we're finding is a lot of the newer roles that are getting created in and around a new cloud operating model are actually far more meaningful than the roles people are leaving behind. The challenge is leaders in IT is you've got to get the organization through that transition, right. And that's the piece that slows us down the most right now. Once you do, you get an accelerated rate of change. I think the other thing is as you start to digitize and automate and create more agility, this big sort of human middleware component that's built up inside IT organizations, that skilled workforce, but they do standard repeatable type work. As that starts to squeeze, that's where you get concern from the organization that's in those roles right now. And, I say coaching through and coming out the other side is the hard part.
Right.
One point I want to make is that cloud or not cloud, on-premise or off-premise, the key is about how is it aligned with the business, right? So I think that has been a very important thing. And also, wherever I've seen in the Silicon Valley companies where a CIO gets really in the table in an executive level discussion and influencing some of the decisions, the companies are extremely successful. The executive management and the board, which realizes that, are extremely, extremely successful. And where I've seen the companies which have not really given IT a lot in terms of importance or influence, then they are kind of getting stagnant. There are several examples. So the key point is about how a CIO can align with their business goals and how he effectively communicates with all the business executives, and making sure that he can articulate how every IT initiative is aligned towards one of their business goals or all of their business goals is very, very key. I think it's been through a learning. It is not without a push and pull with the speed and the pressure. It's always there is a scenarios where IT becomes the person who get blamed for anything that goes wrong. But if there's an ongoing dialogue between the business executives and the CIO and how things are always aligned, when things go off track, if they have a clear channel to the CIO in terms of telling them like why this is not aligned, then it becomes the whole operation becomes significantly easier.
Yeah, so I refer to it as moving up the stack.
As what?
Moving up the stack. In the tech space, we always look at the stack that we have to manage. And I've just started a box with a previous CPG company. It actually involved a lot of tough conversations because I had engineers and that were working on systems, traditional sysadmin, and I basically had to say, look, if you want to work in that space, you need to go work for a data center because we're not going to be managing this anymore. Because I want the teams to come in as project managers, business analysts, working closer to the business, deploying cloud solutions. And they're pretty tough conversations to have. It took us about 18 months to transform the organization around and to look very, very different. Because I think the Nicholas Carr thing is very true. Is IT, what we called IT back then, you cannot differentiate your business now. I can't give you a better PC than Jay can. It's commoditized. It's just, you can't differentiate. So we have to be moving into business process, analytics, data. How can we get all that working and get that to the business as fast as we can and partner with them on their business issues, not how cool the technology is.
Yeah, I think it's like...
I'll let you go in a second, but I just want to say I want to go to questions really soon, so the folks with mics, if people want to start finding them, that'd be great. But
yeah, it's interesting because earlier someone mentioned about SaaS and moving to SaaS, and the business was able to move to a SaaS model independent of IT. And I think IT organizations get stuck between sort of resisting that going on and being concerned about it. We actually found that embracing the model of SaaS, actually we actually try internally to actually operate and behave and think like a SaaS company. SaaS is revenge of the business at the end of the day anyway. It exists for a reason. And what we found is that most of the workloads that are moving to the sort of the SaaS type world are they're business critical processes, but they're not processes or workloads that differentiate you in the marketplace. So if there are solutions that can, do this better and faster, not necessarily cheaper, but with more agile and speed than the internal IT organization can do, then great, embrace it, and then effectively work on the workloads that differentiate you in the marketplace. And really, that's where you can really innovate and add value back to the organization. We don't win in the marketplace because we've got the best HR system in the world. We use Workday. It works great for us. We don't manage it ourselves directly. But what we've distilled it down to is the things that differentiate us in the marketplace and really focusing on that.
One thing is, using these different software as a service products, does it make it hard? Because one of the kind of recurrent themes over the past couple of days has been this tendency of various services, products to get siloed, and everybody's got the Yammer that they're supposed to do the one thing on, and nobody else pays attention to it. How do you get, and I'm stealing this from Joe Paolantonio, how do you get the different clouds to intersect? I guess how do you get these different parts to talk to each other?
I think the dirty secret is that it's no different with on-premise software.
Right.
And there's a lot of FUD about how all this stuff is going out of control, but there's a lot of integration that goes on in on-premise systems, and the vendors themselves. So you talk to the big gorillas out there, they spend a ridiculous amount of money on integrating their own systems. So yeah, there's a lot of FUD out there about that. What I see is that things are happening a lot faster though. So in the old days, we would have 18, 24-month cycles. That's down to 3 months now. So we have to integrate these things actually a lot quicker to get the value and not get out of control.
It's all about deploying capability, like you said, every 3 months, but it's the back-end integration that's the secret sauce.
Yeah.
Right? And that's where the technology folks really add value to that SaaS product.
Who's got a mic? Back there's one, and then someone wants to name, rank, and serial number.
Hi, Jay. I'm Rachel King from the Wall Street Journal. I'm curious, why did you build your own ERP system? I don't know many people that would do that today.
Yes. I'm glad we did that, because initially I was also very skeptical, to be very honest, because at VMware I implemented the Oracle order-to-cash system, Oracle, and then I've implemented other systems, ERP systems in the past. I have enough experience of implementing larger ERP systems. At the same time, I also have experience of being in engineering and developing the ERP systems at Oracle. I used to work for Oracle prior to VMware. So when I joined Tesla, very clearly the speed and the agility that we needed to execute and get the core product to the market, which is the car. Tesla already had one of the biggest ERP systems, and that is regularly used by several manufacturing companies, which is SAP. And clearly it was not working, and they were not producing many number of cars, very few number of cars. And I know what it takes to implement an ERP system, what it takes to upgrade an ERP system and CRM systems. And clearly there was a discussion, and the vision and direction from Elon was, this is not going to cut it, we need to get our own going. And we did, I would say for a month I did an evaluation of several things on what we need to do, and finally arrived at a decision that yes, we need to do. And Elon made a very clear decision for the whole company that yes, we need to move in this direction, and I'm ready to take the risk, let's keep moving. And he said, I've done this in the past in my other company. So we kept moving in this space, and it was, I could say, it was a world record for developing and implementing an ERP system. We did it in 4 months, literally 4 months. And we kept enhancing it, and I think it's one of the best systems right now we have. And it did enable us in delivering the car in the speed that we wanted to deliver. And we would have not done with any other system, honestly, because not only implementing, because for us to deliver the car, we needed a higher version of SAP, which I know what it takes to upgrade a new version of SAP. And then the second is, integrating, I think Ben talked about what it takes to integrate an on-premise software, even a cloud software, and I've done that several times. I've done several middleware systems. It takes a lots of time, and without doing what we did, it would have been pretty much impossible to get the product out. So we are in a great place. Now what I'm focusing on internally is how am I going to scale my application? And one of the challenges, or one of the reasons many CIOs or executives make a decision for going for a packaged software is scalability. When I'm going, okay, I am a small company right now, I can run with this software I have for maybe $100 million revenue and maybe $1 billion, but when I'm planning to get to $5 billion, it's not going to scale. So we are already in a large scale. We are in a few $1 billion revenue. We are going to get significantly higher. We know we are going to get exponentially bigger. So all I'm thinking is how am I going to scale? I'm super confident that we are going to scale very well. So coming back to the core answer for your question, is the agility and the speed in which we need. And then the second critical thing is the vertical integration, which is working phenomenal. Every department in our company is using the same application, so there is no need for me to kind of scramble and put several pipes for integration and missing data in between and all sorts of, I would say, data integrity issues. It's not that we don't have data integrity issues, but it's very minimal compared to what I've seen in the past.
So the takeaway for everyone is build your own ERP systems. That's awesome. Right here, I think?
You can really shoot yourselves in the foot if we don't know what we are doing. It needs the right team, we need right mindset, and an alignment from the executive team.
You first?
I believe they're going.
Oh, back there?
First.
Okay, back there first. Then.
Hey, I'm Sanjeev from, not a CIO from Silicon Valley, but from Midwest. So one of the questions that I have is, there's a trend of consumerization of IT in the recent times, right? Which is both good and bad for the CIO role, which is that everybody in the organization, the other C-level roles think they now understand technology, like your CFO, CMO, everybody thinks, oh, I know about this cool app, I know what is technology. But at the same time, it has also, the whole social mobile analytics has changed, made technology a driver. My question is, what exactly is your take on this whole transformation of the CIO role? And there's a lot of talk about should CIO report to a CFO, COO, CMO, or Chief Data Officer. What is your take on that hierarchy with the current technology wave and consumerization of IT?
We have very little time to answer this. You want to take it in 10 seconds?
I'd be happy. I think it's just like SaaS. When you think about commercialization of what's happened with IT, I think you got to be able to embrace it, understand how you're going to make it work. And if you think about what Charles Phillips talked about, how do you improve that UX, UI experience so you no longer tell business people they're users like drug dealers, but they are actually business consumers. And then regardless of the reporting structure, if you're an IT leader viewed strategic, if you're reporting to the CEO or CFO or CMO, you're going to have an impact if you're viewed strategic. If you're not, it doesn't matter who you report to. And
that's a good place to end it. Sorry, we're out of time. You should maybe go outside and corner one of these guys. You were the first hand I saw, but you lost out. Wait, we got time for you? Okay, right. Go for it. Awesome, thank you.
Thank you. Annalie Killian from AMP in Australia, and I'm not a technical person, I'm from the business side. My question is also along the line of the changing role of the CIO. Paul, you made a comment about the sort of human middleware in the middle that is no longer kind of required. Ben, you talked about moving up the stack. Ramon, you talked about being more at the customer-facing side of the business rather than the back end. My question is, what do you see your role as when it comes to people development and having the right skills? And what are the skill sets that you're hiring and developing for?
Paul?
Yeah, sure. So I think that a couple things. First off, we're seeing we're actually partnering with a number of universities right now to work with identifying graduate students that are actually going to join VMware in certain types of roles that traditionally don't exist. You can't advertise for. And the reason for that is that it's requiring a new sort of mindset, a mindset that is
I assume not grad students in comp led or something.
You know, I mentioned earlier I was a COBOL programmer in 1987. When I started, you know, I showed up at the office. I didn't even have a desktop. You know, it was a pen and paper and you know, and a phone. And you know, when you think about the generations of workforce, you know, we have people today that we serve that the screen's only got a flicker and there's where's my IT support, and you have people that join the workforce now and they'd rather jump off a bridge than open up a ticket, right? We've got to support all of this in between, right? And so we're finding that there are those that are embracing change, and you know, they sort of accept the, as I said earlier,
So I guess the question
constant
is,
change is steady
how do you
state.
find them?
So you have them in the organization, and you should be able to identify who those people are. One of the things that we're doing is what we've done is we actually created what we call an innovation lab, where we actually get to take people out of their current roles, and these are the ones that want to sign up for this, and actually get to focus on things. They're not operationally running anything, but they get to focus on incubation, technology experimentation, solving tough problems. We put smart people together to solve tough problems, and also using the graduate programs to bring people into the workforce that are moving into roles such as cloud administrators, blueprint designers, scripters, as opposed to database administrators or Linux administrators.
Okay. I think we need to get off the stage, but since you're at a different scale of company, how are you thinking about it?
Yeah, so I actually look for business people who understand customer service. And I move away from the pure technologists. The dream is someone who understands both sides, and to some extent you have to curate that. And it's easier if you can curate a person who understands the business side of things. They're focusing on process, project management, all of that. That's kind of where we need to head. So most of my successful hires have been from the business, and you've got to convince them to come to the dark side of IT and sell the story that we're transforming this, but it's working so far.
Great note to end on. Thank you very much, panel.
Sure.